Hello, my name is Zach Hill, and I'm joined today with James Madison University President John Alger. President Alger, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know these are completely unprecedented times right now.
That's right, Zach. It's great to be with you, and I'm sorry we can't be together in person during these most unusual times. So we'll make the best of the technology, and I appreciate your patience with that, and I hope you're doing well. I hope your classes are going well.
Thank you. I want to start off by talking about something that you mentioned the last time that we spoke, and that's something you've also communicated to the JMU community, this idea of cautious optimism. How would you go about briefly defining cautious optimism as we've come to this point now?
Well, I think the idea of cautious optimism, we all know that we're in uncharted territory in dealing with this pandemic, right? We are facing something for which there is no cure right now other than solidarity and everybody working together. So on the one hand, I think it's our job to try to focus on our educational mission. And so the optimism has to come in and saying, look, we will find a way, whatever that means, whatever it takes, to be as flexible as possible, but to accomplish that educational mission. And the optimism is to say, one way or another, we will make that work. We have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable, but that's got to be our guiding light, along with, of course, the importance of protecting public health and all of our students, faculty, staff, and the community. The cautious part, of course, comes in with, we know that there are things that we have to be prepared for, that we have to have all kinds of contingency plans, and that's, of course, what we're experiencing now as a university, and you're seeing it at other places around the country. So the caution means, look, we have to be ready to pivot at any moment. And so it's that combination that you make plans, you try to do things in the best way that you can to get the university ready, but you also know that based on the medical evidence and the advice that you get, that you've got to be prepared to pivot to do whatever is necessary to protect public health and the safety of everybody, and then also maintain academic progress for our students.
Now, would you say that you or the university in general might have been overly optimistic in returning this fall?
I don't think that it's a matter of being overly optimistic or underly optimistic either. I think we did everything that we could based on the best evidence that we had and all the advice that we had to try to prepare the campus community for a return for the fall semester. We knew all along, and we've been saying that for months now, that we would have to be prepared for contingencies. So you think about back in March when this hit very suddenly, and we had to convert very quickly to online courses. We made that happen. Over the summer, we spent a lot of time preparing to try to figure out how to do this in the best way possible as the fall semester started. But we knew that there was something we can't control. And if the pandemic hit hard as it has, where the number of cases spiked very quickly and there were tremendous demands on quarantine and isolation space that escalated, then we would have to be prepared to pivot. You're seeing this all across the country, obviously, with other colleges, but also other types of organizations that have had to adapt to changing circumstances. So I think we all knew that those were possibilities. So you hope for the best, like you plan for the worst, and you plan for all the eventualities. And that's, of course, what we are trying to go through now. And as we go forward, we will have to continue to look at everything that we can possibly do, again, to protect public health. That's the guiding principle, along with maintaining academic progress. And that's the combination we need to stay focused on in our decision.
Michigan State, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, like you mentioned, a bunch of other schools have already went online or are considering going online. Do you think it's just possibly not possible for a university to be in person during the pandemic?
Yeah, we're seeing all kinds of experiences across the country, right? There are some schools that have not had the same number of of cases, the same kind of outbreak that we are currently facing that are seem to be doing okay. There are others, like you said, that have gone completely online. And so I don't think that there's an absolute answer here. I mean, we talk every single day to our medical experts as we talk about plans, as we talk about what we're doing, what we can improve, what we can enhance. So I don't think it's an all or nothing answer. And part of what we've tried to do, I mentioned flexibility and adaptability, is to say to our community, I think we all need to recognize this, to say there are only so many things we can control. And to the extent that we can, we're going to do everything we can to try to set up the campus and the classroom and all the different pieces to try to get our education mission accomplished in the best way possible. But we know that there are, if things get worse, if case numbers go up, if it becomes an impossible situation for people to be in person in classroom settings, then we are ready to offer online classes in whole or in part. So I don't think it's as easy as just a complete on or off switch. We don't know how long it's going to last, as you know. It's not like we have a vaccine that we're going to have tomorrow or the next day. And even once it gets developed, it will take time to get disseminated to all the people who will need it. So we have got to continue to try to figure out how to work through these very challenging circumstances. And we, by the way, are in touch constantly with other institutions, other medical experts to try to get the best advice possible on how to proceed.
So do you think that a vaccine is going to be what pushes us back to, a normal, the normal that we were familiar with before? Or do you think that it'll just come with time? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think there are a number of things that could change here. Obviously, right now we are monitoring, as you know, on a daily basis, the number of cases and looking at the spread and trying to trace the spread to see what can be done to stop it. So, the better and faster that all of that can happen is contact tracing. That certainly is one component. Another component is treatment. Something that we haven't all talked about a lot yet is the fact that there are a number of people that are also working on treatments for the disease. It's not the same as a vaccine, but if there are things that can be done to slow or stop the disease, that's another possibility that's important here. We've got a lot of researchers that are working on this as we speak. There are a lot of questions that people don't know the answer to. Why does it affect some people so much more harshly than others, right? What is it that we can learn from the people that are either asymptomatic or have very mild symptoms? So there's a lot of research that's going on right now, and I think that could also certainly help us all if we had answers to these questions. One of the biggest challenges with this particular pandemic is the fact that it is so unpredictable in certain ways. Some people get very seriously ill, other people don't get ill at all. And that makes it particularly challenging. Plus, we've been learning a lot just over these last 2 months about how it does get transmitted from one person to the next. And of course, we've heard, new information on almost a daily basis as the scientists and the medical experts figure that out. So I think understanding all of those things will be helpful going forward and will help us to make the best possible decisions.
What would you consider to have been the tipping point that pushed us online to make that transition? Was there any one moment in particular that kind of pushed the administration or you over the edge in making that choice?
Right. So we've been talking, as I said, literally every day. We have a team of people who talk to our medical experts to look very closely at what's happening with the virus, what's the spread looking like, how fast is it going up, and where is it? And so the challenge that we had that happened very quickly, as you know, is that we had a very quick spike. And it appeared certainly that a lot of it was coming initially from off campus. The concern, of course, was that it was now going to spread on campus. And, of course, you've got students mixing together on campus, even with all the protocols that we've got in place. So in talking to our medical health experts, it was a combination of metrics we were looking at. It was the It was the number of cases, but it was also the rapidity of the spread, and then it was the quarantine and isolation phase. The challenge that we were facing, and you probably know how this works with quarantine space, is that one student would test positive, and then they would give us perhaps 5, 10, or even 20 names of people that were identified as close contacts. At that point, we have to quarantine all of those people, even if they haven't tested positive, but even if they're not symptomatic. That was really one of the big challenges that we had, is because of the rapidity of that spike and the impact on quarantine and isolation space. Our medical experts said we're going to have to make some kind of a pivot very quickly here because of the fact that we are going to run out of space, and we've got to protect all of our students. And so they said the only thing that we can do is to take a pause in terms of in-person hybrid classes, to go online with the classes, and then to densify the campus so that we have a lower density on campus, and that allows us to manage even the most extreme, quarantine and isolation needs. But it was that combination of things. So it wasn't just one number. It was a combination of different things, and again, very much under the advice of our medical experts who've been monitoring the situation very closely.
One thing I've noticed, I know a lot of students who have gotten exemptions to stay on campus. Do you have any concerns over how many students might have been going to get an exemption and how that might cause problems with depopulating the campus, kind of like you said?
Yes, so we did, as you point out, we did want the exemption, first of all, for several reasons, right? We knew that there might be some students who had high-risk family members at home, and we absolutely wanted to protect student families and home communities. And so there were several things that we did there to probably notice. First of all, we told students, if you are currently under quarantine or isolation, to stay on campus and complete that time on campus. We said, even if you are going home, you quarantine for 14 days as you go home as a preventive measure. And then the exemption is that if there is anybody who has special circumstances, which might be, for example, having family members at home who are higher risk, or perhaps they have problems with internet connectivity. We have some students that are not able, they don't have stable internet, they don't have that capacity with technology to continue with their classes if they are not here. Now, having said all that, with the exemptions, we knew that if we could get down to below 50% of residence hall capacity during this period over these next couple of weeks, that lowering the density in that way would literally mean handle the needs for quarantine and isolation. And so we were tracking the exemptions very carefully. Residence Life was reviewing them case by case, but we were able to get over 50% of students who did decide to go home with all of those precautions in place. The others did get exemptions, but the numbers have worked in order for us to be able to continue.
You know, you have a lot of experience in higher education. Leading JMU during a pandemic, that's definitely no easy task. I'm sure you rank it among one of the hardest things you've probably had to do throughout your career. I wouldn't be surprised. What kind of letter grade would you give yourself in how you've handled the pandemic and leading JMU throughout the pandemic?
Well, if I heard you correctly, you were asking about grading myself, and I've got to tell you, Zach, right now, when you're in the midst of crisis, I don't think anybody can give an accurate grade, nor do I think that's particularly productive, quite honestly. We are still in the midst, and we are making decisions every day, and a lot of people, there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking that goes on during something like this, and yet we don't know. Right? I mean, I think if you look back a year from now, 5 years from now, people may view things very differently than they do today. So I think rather than thinking about how do we grade ourselves, I think the questions we need to ask ourselves is, what can we possibly do to make sure that we're making the best possible decision, getting information from all the experts that we can, learning from what's going on around the country and from other campuses, and having that can-do spirit. Of course we are learning. I know that I am not perfect, and I've got a lot to learn. That is true for everybody on our team. It's true for all of our students, and it's true for our entire society right now. So, this is a situation where the only real solution is for us to come together. And we also know that there is no individual who's got a silver bullet. If you know who that person is, give me their phone number, right? But the reality is that this is something that is unpredictable. It is challenging. Continue to learn, and you have to have that humility. And that is certainly the approach that I have had. I've spent a lot of time to medical experts. I think that's important to my role. I spend a lot of time trying to hear the opinions and perspectives of other people. And I think that's the best way to approach something like this. You've got to have that humility. You've got to be learning. And we know that this is something that is going to continue. And so we have to keep approaching it with that kind of mindset.
I want to change gears a little bit and talk about the financial implications if I can. And I know that you guys won't really have all the data on that until after October 10th. What are you guys thinking that the enrollment numbers are doing right now? I mean, I know you guys don't really know exactly, but have you seen enrollment already start to decline with the transition online, or are you just not aware right now?
Well, I certainly don't have exact numbers exact today because it is very much, of course, a moving target. That, by the way, is true every year to some extent this time of year until you get what's called the census date, where they finalize the enrollment numbers for the semester. You actually don't know the final enrollment. So every year there is some melt over the summer and then at the beginning of the academic year for a variety of reasons, right? And obviously with the pandemic, it's really exacerbated the uncertainty of enrollment. So we know that there could be a significant budgetary impact on the university. We've already been through with the refunds that to do. There's no new funding coming this year as originally hoped for. With the whole pandemic hit, there was actually a little bit of new money the state was hoping to invest in higher education. That now, because of the impact on the state budget, has changed. So we know that financially it's very difficult. I've been talking to presidents from around the state on a regular basis, from around the country, and all of our institutions are facing that same issue and challenges. And so we will have a better handle in these next weeks as we get the final enrollment numbers and as we see, other impacts when we think about what we have to do with technology, what we have to do from a public health perspective with spending additional money to invest. We've already invested millions of dollars in a variety of ways. You've probably seen, technology, enhanced technology in and outside the classrooms, PPE that we've spent money on and cleaning equipment. There are a lot of steps that we've taken, a lot of investments that we have made. And we're still talking, by the way, to the state about what they can possibly do help higher education right now. But certainly over these next few weeks, that period, that issue of the financial implications of the budget will become a lot more clear. But we know that it's serious. We know that it's challenging, and that is something that as a leadership team now we are looking at, and again, having to think about contingencies.
The plan is currently set for you guys to reevaluate the decision of going back in person by October 5th. Obviously, a lot can change from then. Looking at the numbers from before, we had over 1,000 cases, positivity rate of almost 5% of the student body, lots of cases making up almost half or more of Harrisonburg's total cases. I'm curious, what makes you think that history isn't going to repeat itself? I mean, why are we what's going to be different in a month from now, or even in the spring? I mean, when you would be battling with flu season as well in those peak months of January and February, is it a reasonable expectation to have students come back, or is that just more cautious optimism, as you would call it?
Well, there's a lot that can change. When you talk to the public health experts, they will tell you there's a lot. First of all, we know that there are some things that we can do and we can control, right? And a lot of that goes to everybody in the community doing their part. I have to say that I was very proud of a lot of the students certainly that I saw on campus wearing masks. They were observing some distancing guidelines. But we know not everybody did and that there were issues in some cases off campus. And so, one of the things we all need to do is to think about, what can we do? What is our role in this? And that is absolutely everybody that has a role to play as part of this. And then we're also looking at what are additional things that can be done. And this is where the latest medical evidence comes into play. Can you lower classes further in terms of density so that you really make any risk minimal in terms of how people are interacting on the campus. Continuing to look at what you can do in terms of dining to make sure that you can get food to everybody in ways that minimize any risks. Are there additional things that you can do in terms of personal protective equipment or things like that? So it's that combination of things that I think we have to look at, and I think we learn a lot from what is happening at other institutions and in other communities. And that's something that the medical experts and public health experts certainly have said to us is that they learn a lot from watching what's happening in other places. And in some cases, they have a significant wave like this, but you can, if you take decisive action, as we've tried to do here, that you can perhaps stop the spread. And that was certainly the goal of trying to move decisively here. And we will be tracking numbers very closely in these days to come. And we'll see, based on where those numbers are. But it's, again, I don't think there's one simple answer here. I think we have to be looking at data constantly and learning not from our own campus, but from experiences at other places. There are a number of schools around the country, I'm sure you know, that have had a lot of cases. And let's not forget that a lot of those students also are already presumed to have recovered because they've gone through a period of time either without showing symptoms or with having very mild symptoms. And so, the case numbers always keep going up, right? When you say how many cases overall have there been at an institution, but a whole lot of those people are in that category now of presumably recovered. And so that's something else that the medical experts are trying to make sure that we pay close attention.
President Alger, it was a pleasure having you on. Hopefully we can bring you in again sometime when we're not so distanced. But thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Zach, and please stay safe, and it's been great to talk with you.
You too. Thank you.